Good evening and welcome to the Gersnet Podcast. This is the Cup-winning last 16 qualifying for 306th podcast, and my name is John McCallum, and you'll be listening to us and watching us smile for the rest of the evening. This is normally going on for an hour, but I suspect we'll be talking here for 3 or 4 hours tonight, so strap yourselves in. Gersnet is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is always free. Now, it's not just the podcast we have here at Gersnet. There is a forum, there's articles, social media, there's a history archive on the website as well, and we'd urge you to have a look at all of those things as you can. Likewise, with the pod, if you could subscribe on your favourite podcast forum, that would be fantastic. Likewise, if you like what you hear, please share with it on social media. Now, tonight's show, we'll be discussing today's match, obviously. We'll spend some time talking about James Tavernier, just what he means to the club. We'll discuss what Clement is doing to get a tune out of some of the players who looked finished just a few months ago. We'll talk about Dujon Sterling, John Lundstrom, Leon Balogun. We'll look back to a legendary evening in Seville. And if time allows us, we'll even look forward to the St Johnstone game on Wednesday night. Now, before we do any of that, I just have to mention Forrest Precision Engineering, who are our sponsors, and without whose support we could not do the show. Forrest Precision Engineering are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many, many years. We're delighted to have them backing the pod. You can visit the Forrest Precision Engineering Executive Lounge, which is a hospitality area in the main stand. And if it's something of interest to you, and it should be at this time of year, if you're still trying to find that perfect present for that difficult Ranger supporter in your life, this could be the thing for you. It's an intimate space, and if you can contact the club directly via email at hospitality@rangers.co.uk, they'll give you all the information about the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge. Okay. There's a park near where I live, and I go there every morning with the dog. And around September time, if the weather is right, so there's a slight hill in this park, and you can climb up this hill with the dog, and then you overlook this big area of flower beds. And all round the flower beds are benches, and all of these benches now are memorial benches, and they've all got a brass or a stainless steel plaque on them. Right? It's maybe 30 or 40 of them, okay? And it's actually quite a nice sight when you kind of come up the hill and you outlook this, and as I said, there's flower beds there, usually quite pretty. Glasgow's one of Glasgow's better parks, it has to be said. Now, at a certain time of year around September time, and at a certain time in the morning, and if the weather is right, the sun is just rising, and it hits each of those benches, and each of those benches sparkles. They just sparkles. Now, I've lived here 20 years. I've lived in this part of Glasgow about 20 years. I've been going to that park every day with the dogs over the years, and I've maybe seen that twice or 3 times. Right? It's just one of these wonderful sights where everything comes together. You get the timing right, you get the weather right, you get the time of day right, everything comes together. And I have to say, today feels like one of those days. It's been an incredible 4 or 5 days for Rangers. And it's one of these things I don't think we appreciate enough. I think it's sometimes we just kind of take these things for granted, and really we should stop and say, you know what, this has been a wonderful last week. For what has been an up and down season, the last few days have been exceptional. So in tonight's show, I'm joined by people who don't need much of an introduction, but seeing as it's the last Gersnet show or before the festive season, I'm joined by the ghost of Christmas past in Stuart Weir, the ghost of Christmas future in Grant Mackay, and I think that probably makes me Ebenezer Scrooge. It's probably a role I'm quite good at playing as it is. I doubt there'll be too many Tiny Tims watching tonight. Don't think they'll be tuning in quite as much. So I'm not going to even bother asking you two just how you are. I'm going to assume things are pretty good. And let's just get straight into talking about today's game. So Stuart, I'm going to start with you. It's difficult. You don't come down from a cup final victory quite as quickly as 2-3 hours later as we are just now. Trying to see past the high you get from that. It wasn't a classic. It's not going to go down as a classic football match. But I thought over the piece, Rangers deserved the victory. I thought we were the better team on the day. Aberdeen competed, but I thought we were the better team on the day. Do you agree with that? Do you feel that was we didn't steal a victory today, did you? That was Rangers and deservedly so.
I think. Thank you for the introduction, but I think I actually come down to earth quicker, or basically come back to a working level quicker than most. I think I'm fitted with ballast tanks that bring me plummeting back down to a survivable level. I don't suffer from the bends very often, but I do, and I think it has to do with actually watching big matches and then having to do match reports directly afterwards. But I would entirely agree with you that the match was over the piece. And given I watched it almost like 1.5 times, I thought that it was rather poor in terms of quality. The worrying part for me was that if Rangers had again this 60-something% of possession and it was still 0-0 going into the last 15 minutes, was this going to be a smash and grab act from Aberdeen? Then you realise that Aberdeen hadn't actually had a shot in the entire game. Anything that did go anywhere near the Rangers goal was, I think the crowd reacted more to it than Jack Butland did or any defender did. So I think all in all, it was a very satisfactory result. As Winston Churchill once said, you only need one for a majority, and that was one that Rangers got. And all in all, I think it was more than deserved. I think Rangers can celebrate. I think the turnaround transformation in the team was there for all to see over the last couple of weeks. And I think this was almost like the kind of icing and cherry on the cake, and maybe a few sprinkles and sparkles and the likes, that Philippe Clement, in his own way, has got that team playing for him and playing for the badge.
Yeah, it really has. Grant, I don't know if you have to write match reports afterwards. I don't. I just have to try and come up with agendas for podcasts every now and then, and even that I don't get to do terribly well or terribly quickly. So I'm still high, and I'm hoping you still are as well. But I want to just have a chat about our goal scorer today, our captain, James Tavernier. Once again, in a very important match. And I thought Aberdeen had actually done quite a good job on him in terms of keeping him in his own half, really. Particularly in the first half, they really limited the number of times he was able to get forward. There was, I don't know if you would have, if you saw, there was an interview after the match with Connor Goldson. And Connor Goldson said that the Rangers support will only truly appreciate James Tavernier after he's gone, and would try and replace him. Today was a captain's performance, I think you have to say, and another amazing goal. What did you think of his performance? What did you think of the goal? And I guess overall, Tavernier's had a funny season. On this very podcast earlier this season, we were talking openly that he wasn't the player he was 2-3 seasons ago. He wasn't getting forward as much, didn't have the same energy levels, and yet today he silences all of his critics, us included, or certainly me included, and scored what turned out to be the winning goal today, and may actually be one of the most important goals of the season for us. What did you make of Tav today?
Yeah, listen, Tavernier's Tavernier. He does what he does. He has been, as you said, he hasn't been going forward as much recently, but I think that's been better defensively. He get called out a lot in his Rangers career for being defensively inept, sometimes getting caught out down that side. So he's defending better now, and he's still contributing going forward with goals and assists. Again today, I mean, he's unbelievable. He turns up at the big times when you need him. I mean, you can't ask any more of that. I mean, Goldson says what he says after the game. He won't be the only one thinking that. There's so many players that have said that, ex-players and ex-managers. Clement talks about him as well. Clement actually said during the week, he needs guys with balls. Tavernier has got balls. He's been slaughtered from Rangers fans, media for years defensively, and you know what? He he just keeps churning out numbers. He does it time and time again. And again, he's put the cup, the 28th League Cup for Rangers in the trophy cabinet. You can't ask any more of this guy. Like, you really can't. You see them driving the players on today. He was switching with Sterling as well. He was coming inside, Sterling was moving outside, covering for each other. It was just a captain's performance, as you said. Listen, I can't speak highly enough of him. I really can't. Yeah. What a week it's been for Rangers, eh?
It certainly has. If Carlsberg did weeks, this was the one. Stuart, another player who's been revitalised recently under Clement is John Lundstrom. Again, Lundstrom was a player who was getting, and I think fairly, criticised last season and again earlier this season. But against Betis, he was superb. And he was excellent again today, I thought. Touch on his performance today, what you thought of his performance today, but also the fact that he's out of contract at the end of the season. Surely if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he will be offered an extension. Or do you think, no, it's time to move on? He's just getting the game because he's the only fit central midfielder left at the club. Or do you think he has he's not got a long-term future judging his age, but do you think he has a future beyond this season with Rangers?
I think he, first and foremost, it's down to the player. The player could probably ask for a new contract right at this minute in time, and then therefore Rangers would know what they're actually going to do, and he would know if he really wanted to stay. Who's to say it hasn't been discussed? I think a bit like Tavernier, although in slightly different circumstances, I think Clement has been very good for both of those players. I think Lundstrom was utterly lost by the mixed messages he was getting from Michael Beale. I think it's very difficult to cover every blade of grass in the midfield when you're being told not to move and hold a defensive position. It's very difficult when you're being asked what you doing in that particular position, or asked to play down the right, and then be expected to cover across on the left side as well. I think people don't actually realise the discipline of midfielders. Well, he's everywhere. These guys are not everywhere. It would be utter confusion if they were everywhere. And once or twice we saw that under Michael Beale. So I think Lundstrom has actually been, and this is part of maybe a bigger picture. I think Clement has come in and inherited a squad of players that are not his. He has then almost picked up a page from the Bill Belichick coaching manual that says, do your job. And there are players doing their job to the best, and maybe not only the best, but maybe beyond their ability at times. And I think Lundstrom comes into that category in the last two games. One, that he had the appetite for the game against Betis, and secondly, he basically must have been patched up after that game and wound up, and another couple of batteries going in to actually get himself to perform the way he did today. So I think, Tavernier has been helped out by Clement as well. I think that's why you saw Sterling getting that particular role, because he can cover for Tavernier if he did manage to go forward. I think Aberdeen were awake to the deficiencies between McCausland and Tavernier as they were exposed on Thursday night. You saw the goals that they scored, and Aberdeen pressed up on that side. Even though they were leaving themselves short, they still pressed up on Tavernier to make it difficult for them. So I thought Rangers negotiated that part of it quite well. And again, in the midfield, I actually thought that Lundstrom bossed the midfield. He wasn't taking any snash, particularly from Graham Shinney, and made it known to all those around him what kind of game they faced with one or two of the tackles that he put in. He got away with it, up until late on when there was a bit of a, as Arthur Montford would say, a bit of a stramash. And he did well to ride his luck at times, but I think he was so influential in that midfield. I think that's the kind of performances that would actually earn him another contract. in the space of the next week or next 2 weeks if Rangers are really desperate to keep him.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was excellent today. He was partnered in midfield, Grant, by Dujon Sterling. Now, we've not seen much of Sterling since he joined in the summer. Now, as I understood it, he joined as a defender. But obviously, his most recent outings have been in midfield, and they've been really eye-catching. His second half performance in Betis was, he was arguably, certainly in the second half, he was arguably our best player in the second half. And he got the official man of the match today. What did you make of his performance today? Did you agree with the man of the match? There was probably 3 or 4 players that it could have gone to. What was your take on it?
For the man of the match, I would have given it to Tavernier just for the winning goal. But no, you're right. He played excellent. He played an excellent game. He was brought in to cover Tavernier. Let's be honest. Tavernier never gets injured. He keeps producing numbers, so he's not going to get in there. I mean, you're right. I've not seen much of him at all. But he's came in. He's played centre midfield during the week against a right good Betis side. And he's, again, as you said, he was a standout. He's got pace. He's got power. He can tackle. He can track back. He can drive forward. He's an absolute powerhouse. And he's come in, for a game and a half, and he's taken his chance. And I tell you what, it's going to be hard to shift out there because he's been putting in performances. It's funny how these players just they come out of nowhere. They come out of nowhere, and you stick them in somewhere, and they do a job. And that's what we've been needing the last few weeks because we're down to the bare bones, especially in that middle of the park. Cifuentes has been suspended, and Raskin and Ryan Jack, if he ever comes back from injury, out as well. So, yeah, he's definitely taking his chance. And do you know, he's got the jersey for me just now. He's got the jersey. Yeah,
he does have the jersey, I think, without a doubt.
I would agree with Grant and everything he said there about him. Well, I tell you what he's got more than anything, and that is the trust of his manager. 100%. He's one of these guys that obviously Clement has identified as, this guy is going to give me an 8 out of 10. Whenever I stick him in or whatever I do with him, he is going to play to the instructions I give to him. So if Tavernier bombs forward, this guy isn't going to be on his shoulder saying power right through that entire squad, who he can trust and who he knows that when he calls upon them, as he did on Thursday night for 90 minutes, and a big 90 minutes, are they going to be guys that are suddenly going to shrink and say, I don't know if I'm up to another 90 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes in a cup final a few days later, or are they suddenly going to dust themselves down, have a couple of ice baths, a couple of gin and tonics, and go again?
Not sure how many gin and tonics Sterling had, but it's a thing that's been overlooked about that Rangers team today is that, our midfield, Lundstrom is arguably a first choice centre midfielder for us when everybody's fit. But Sterling isn't even a midfielder. He's not even a first choice defender for Rangers. And he came into the midfield, and as you said, that's now his position to lose. The game and a half, and 2 important games. The game and a half that he's had there, he looks like he's born for that role. His energy, his strength, which you touched upon there, but not just that. His awareness of what's going on around him. For a player who you assume is naturally defensive, you have to assume that looking at what he's done, and he's not a guy who's played a lot of first team football for anybody. And I just think we're perhaps overlooking the fact that him as a rookie coming into a cup final. And putting in a performance like a man of the match performance, and it says something about the player himself, about his colleagues around him, but as Stuart says, it says something about Clement and the trust that Clement has in him to come in and do that. He didn't have too many options. There wasn't someone sitting on the bench that he could have played instead of him. But at the same time, I know necessity is the mother of all invention, and he has turned him into something. And there is an element, you can't help but look at him and see these 2 performances and see his adaptability and remind you a little bit of Bassey. When again, a player who'd come up from England, hadn't quite made it at a Premier League team, came up, sat in the reserves for a while, didn't really see a huge amount of him, and then suddenly got his chance, and he took it. And you just wonder, is history going to repeat itself here? And it would be pretty good if it did.
some of us old enough to remember another Rangers player. He wasn't at Rangers at the time, but if you can recall, anybody out there, when Graham Roberts first of all came into the Spurs side, he was almost like a makeshift. He played central defence, right back, midfield, wherever he could get a game, because he was reliable and really carved out a niche for himself in the Spurs side and in the England team. Hence the reason why he ended up at Ibrox when Souness was there. And okay, they might be different in terms of stature. There's something that reminds me of him, that he's basically one of these guys that will play to instruction. He's clever enough to see what's going on around about him as well. I think he's a far better player than maybe his CV that came with him actually states. I think he's maybe a better player, and we're seeing that he's a better player now because he is getting a chance at a higher level.
Yeah, well, I agree with you both. I think he'll be getting another chance on Wednesday, assuming he's fit. Stuart, sticking with yourself, an old-timer who played well today was Balogun.
Yeah.
Liam Balogun seems to be Clement's preferred partner for Goldson. And I suspect he must wonder why he wasn't put into that European squad. But I'd be surprised if he's not in it after Christmas. Look, the defence overall, when we touched upon this with Tavernier, the defence overall is more solid. It's looked more solid in recent weeks. We don't look like we're not shipping goals in any numbers, and we don't look like we're going to ship goals in any numbers. How big a part of that is Balogun playing? How just important is he to this team just now?
A sizable part, I would say, John. You're right about the back four. The back four is playing as a very decent unit just now. I think that's because players have come back onto a game. Goldson has played pretty well, but I think he's playing quite well because he's got somebody beside him who he actually trusts. Who on earth, given when Walter Smith was brought back as Rangers manager and doing a rebuild, that his two centre backs, I think one was 36 and one was 37. When you had Ehiog and Davy Weir playing together, for somebody to be suggesting he's maybe too old for Rangers going forward, utter rubbish. For Rangers to go forward and progress, you've got to have players that are actually playing at a certain level. And I think Balogun, the fact that he was allowed to leave Rangers under the circumstances, is beyond most people. He is a guy that gives 100% and you could say that about the guy playing out to his left as well. I mean, what a couple of shifts he's put in at a time as well. Remember that it was almost thought of that he wasn't actually going to be part of the plans. He was going to leave Rangers at any time, and he's now become one of the mainstays of the performances that Rangers have actually produced. Above all else, I think there's an element of trust, a huge trust on who that Rangers backline have playing behind them in terms of Jack Butland. There were two instances today. It wasn't the world-class saves. It wasn't, and just I might disagree in terms of the man of the match. I thought the Aberdeen keeper was the man of the match up until that point with the saves that he had to keep Rangers out. He had about 3 or 4 really good saves.
Yeah, he's played well against us all season.
He has done. But I think with Butland at the back there was one. The ball come right into the right into the 6-yard box. Now we've seen over a period of time Rangers goalkeepers flapping and panicking and not making up their mind what they're actually going to do with it. Butland came out, put a big fist on the ball, would have probably have put a fist through the Aberdeen keeper who was up at the park at that time as well. And then there was another incident just after that where the ball get played through. The Rangers backline was somewhat kind of decimated, and they were struggling. They were struggling to run at that point in time. Who was there? Butland. And Butland came out, cleared the ball, and he would have cleared out Goldson as well and anybody else in front of him to get his boot in that ball and get it away. That is the level of awareness and the professionalism that they 4 guys have got playing behind them. And I think ultimately what's happening is that's rubbing off on them. They know that whereas if they give somebody half a yard or somebody gets past them, there's every chance it's going to end up a goal. They're now thinking to themselves, Butland's behind us, he can get a touch on it, or he can save the jerseys here. And I think that not just a back 4, but that entire back 5 are playing so well just now.
Butland must give the defenders in front of him confidence. He's such an accomplished goalkeeper, and as you say, the fact he'll come for crosses. I know exactly the incident you're talking about where he came out just past the edge of his box and cleared it. Because the thing at Aberdeen was they are quite quick. Their forwards are quite quick. And Balogun's fast, actually. Despite his age, I think Balogun's probably our fastest centre half. And a couple of times today he had to show that. Pardon me. He had to show that, and I like Big Balogun. I was a bit disappointed when he left, but I understood we had to rebuild. He's coming towards the end of his season, to the end of his career, and I was a little surprised when we brought him back, but he's earning his corners now. He's in the right position.
At that point in time, it's what you were doing the rebuild with. We doing with concrete blocks or mud bricks. And the guy that Rangers had was doing it with mud bricks baked in the sun that could melt at any time, as we saw time and time again.
And we may see again, unfortunately. But anyway, let's stick with the positives just now. Talking of Butland, again, Grant, I don't know if you'd have caught it, but there was an interview with Butland after the match, and he was asked, slightly unfairly, but he was asked about Clement and what he'd brought to the side and what was different. And he was quite diplomatic. He said it's about mentality. What Clement has changed is our mentality. He said it's as simple as that. Do you think that is all Clement's changed? Was Butland just being diplomatic? Was he simply playing, I'm not going to slate the previous manager, the guy who signed me, I'm not going to do that in national television. Do you think it is as simple as that? Or do you think Clement has done more and is doing more?
John, I think it's pretty clear that he has done more. He's instilled confidence in these guys. These guys look totally short of confidence before under Michael Beale, and they just looked in the last legs. You can see from Clement when he speaks in the media, he's no nonsense. There's no joking. There's no. He said today, day off, no chance. There's no mucking about. Michael Beale was not like that at all. It was kind of be your pal. Clement doesn't want to be your pal. He wants to win games, and he said that. And I love the way he is. So I think Butland, and not just Butland, a few of the players have said the same thing. Scotty Arfield was actually interesting as well when he said at half time that he's still in touch with some of the players, and they've said he's no nonsense, great to work under. Lundstrom said it a few times in the media as well. So it's no coincidence. This guy's instilled confidence. He's not lost a game yet. We went over to Spain and won for the first time in Spanish soil against Spanish opposition. I mean, this is not coincidence. This is a proper manager we've got now. Proper manager for the first time in a long time. And he's getting the best out of what we've got. For me, we're now, 5 points behind Celtic, two games in hand, into the last 16. Won a cup. Who'd have said that 3 months ago? There's more to it than that. He's got something about him, and I just love it. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm absolutely buzzing today. This is just an icing the cake today. It really is. A great week.
I'm not sorry, John. I'm not sure what it is, right? But there is an element of Clement which reminds me of Dick Advocaat. And I've been thinking hard about it and trying to put my finger on it, but there is something about his manner and how he goes about the business. I think it's almost like I am the manager and you will listen to me, whereas one or two managers in the not sort of too distant past have almost been trying to be the pals with the guys. And this is how we form. This is how we bond. This is how we form a team spirit. I'm one of you guys. You can come and speak to me and all the rest of it. Whereas I think with him, he's the kind of guy that would basically ball you out and still be your pal. You know, Walter Smith was incredible at being able to do that. Never really, could lose it with people, but that was it, done and dusted. Yeah. And you moved on from that. And I think Clement is a bit of the Dick Advocaat's about him, that he's kind of cold. I don't mean cold in a unapproachable way. I mean clinical, in as much as this is how I see the thing progressing, and this is how you're all going to do it. And it'll be interesting to see come January or into next summer, those that have toed the line and do it his way, and those that haven't been doing it his way and therefore won't be there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Interesting. Well, before just to add to that, Clement whipped Todd Cantwell off after 32 minutes a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
that wouldn't happen before. That would not have happened. See, there's like what you've seen. He whips you off, and I love that. It's no nonsense. It's just it's for the team. It's not for individuals, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
I think the last time that I saw somebody doing that was Advocat when he did it with George Alberts.
Aye.
He did it with George Alberts, and basically, and it was like, is Alberts injured? No, he just decided that
he's not doing what I asked him to do. Yep,
correct. He's not doing it, and he's not doing it in the fashion I want it. You know, at that time, Advocat had a much bigger squad with far better players, but the fact was that he could dictate what he was going to do down that left-hand side if George Alberts wasn't playing his part, and he did it. And Grant's absolutely spot on with that observation there. That is something that's been badly lacking with Rangers managers showing their authority, that they're actually thinking about the game rather than trying to get to half-time or get to the hour mark before they make the changes.
Yeah, it's too late for them.
Yeah,
no, it was, and it was a change that brought the goal in that game, and I think. And I also thought what was interesting was, he explained after the game that it was absolutely tactical, that Cantwell wasn't doing what he was asked to do. He then explained, when someone had said, well, he was playing wide right, it's not really his position, or wide left, wide right he was playing. It's not really his position. He said, no, he played wide right in the game at Spartan. He played it very well. No, he knows how to play it. He just wasn't doing what he was told. And then he was in the team the next game, playing in a central role and excelling, if you recall. And what's interesting is that, clearly Cantwell is a talented player. Cantwell is a guy who has a creative spark. He's a guy the fans like. He's a kind of football player that the fans like to watch. Clement must know that. Know that here's a guy who can win you great football matches. So I thought his management of him has been very, very interesting. As you say, he pulled him off that time. That's embarrassing for an professional football player.
But that's the point, right? That's the point. The fans love him, and he still did it. He didn't care.
No.
He wants to do. He wants the team to win. He wants for he wants for the team. He doesn't care about anybody thinks, and I love that. I love it. Yeah. We've not had that in a long, long time, as Stuart said.
No. Without being pilloried for making this comparison, because there isn't really a comparison to make, but maybe bear with me. If you look at Pep Guardiola and what he's done with Jack Grealish cost 100 million quid, and in effect, Guardiola said, "You're a fantastic player. I know you can do these things, but if you're playing in my team, you need to do this." And I think there's a comparison between Grealish and Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, and I mean the comparison is that Cantwell is a fantastically talented player, and obviously Clement sees something in him, but he sees what he wants to see. If you see what I mean, he knows that he's capable of playing certain positions and doing certain things, but to earn a place in the starting 11, he has got to do these things first and foremost. And if he doesn't do it, he'll not be. He simply will not be there.
Yeah. I would agree entirely with both of you. I was actually out last night, and we were at a friend's house, and there was a guy there. I didn't know the guy before, but he'd played junior for 20 years, and we were just talking away about football, and he said, just unrelated to this, he said, in my experience of playing junior, 80% of the game is in your head, 80% of the game is psychological, 20% is, said, the guys at that level they've all got ability, they can all play football. The good managers are the ones that can inside their head and give them belief and give them drive, and he was actually talking about, a guy was a Celtic fan, he was talking about the difference in Celtic this season compared to the last two seasons. And their style of football. And I've seen Celtic play once this season, and that was against us. And other than that, I haven't seen it. But you obviously know that things aren't going too well in the East. And a big part of that, he felt, was the psychology of the players, that Rodgers wasn't in their head in the same way Postecoglou had been. And clearly, Clement is doing something different, because basically we're still setting up, it's the same players, and we're still setting up in a similar formation, albeit I think it has more solidity to it. But it's a similar formation, it's similar players doing very, very different things. And a big part of that has got to be mentality. And I always think it's interesting when he's talking about the injury situation and the health and fitness of the players. And I also wonder how much of that is psychology. And I remember this being explained to me a while ago. I've spoken about this in the pod before, and I make no apology for saying it again, but people talk about, and you'll have heard of this, Grant. You won't remember it certainly, but you'll have heard of this. There was Jock Wallace, his first time as Rangers manager, took over at a time when Celtic were, one of the best teams in Europe. There's no point in pretending otherwise. They were going through their 9 in a row. Rangers had just come through a stadium disaster. A lot of the money that could have been getting spent on the team was being earmarked and put into the stadium. There was challenges for Rangers, and he managed to build a team. And we had a very good team. We think some very, very good players. We managed to build a team that eventually won the league and actually won the treble. And he explained that part of the problem we had with the Rangers team was they didn't believe they could win. That, Celtic had a kind of Indian sign over them, and they just didn't actually fully believe it. And so he took them to Gull and Sands, and I think a place called Murder Hill, and he made them run up and down it, and they would be sick, and he basically convinced them that they were now fitter than every other team in the league. There's no players in that league who are now fitter than you. And it was purely psychological. You are no fitter running up and down a sand dune than you are running up and doing anything. But they believed it. And that was the difference. He suddenly gave them this belief. And, I don't know, Clement clearly has his own version of Murder Hill somewhere, because it is definitely making a difference. Sure, I'm going to stay with yourself here. That's our first League Cup trophy in 11 years. I'm looking broadly across the League Cup. It's a trophy that Rangers have traditionally done well in. It's a trophy that at one time kind of considered it our trophy. We were winning it so often. Where does this victory sit in the history of Rangers and this trophy? Where do you think, when we come to look back on this in a few years' time, where do you think this victory is going to sit?
I was trying to draw parallels with the reason that you're asked when you go to study at university what qualification you have in history is because you've got to know where we came from to understand what's happening now or might happen in the future. And I think there are kind of parallels that can be drawn with Rangers if you go back to winning the League Cup when Derek Johnson scored the winner back in October 1970, it would be. And Rangers hadn't won anything for about 5 years up until that point. And it was almost like, well, it is only the League Cup. But it was a League Cup you could jump up and down on and jump off and do a triple back somersault with reverse pike, because it was a springboard for Rangers. And within a year and a bit, they'd won a European trophy. And after that, they won a Scottish Cup. Then they won the league. Then they went on to a treble. So there is a starting point for everything. Dead easy to see the starting point 100 metres. The gun goes bang and you run. In football, it's not so simple to see where the starting point in these things is. But I honestly think that is a welcome trophy. It doesn't have the same cachet. It doesn't have the same kudos as it once did. That trophy used to get you into Europe. It used to get you a place in the old UEFA Cup at one point in time in Scottish football. It doesn't do anything like that for you now. But the fact that you're actually able, the fact that we've seen photographs of Aberdeen and their bus that's now getting, sounding beep, 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 reversed back into the garage, and somebody's going round with a 4-inch wire brush just now, painting out League Cup winners on it. That shows you the importance of that trophy. And joking aside, that trophy was as important to Rangers as it would have been to Aberdeen, because Aberdeen are in the same position of not having won anything for a considerable time. So therefore, the two of them were in the same boat. So it is an important an important trophy because it establishes Rangers again as winners. And I'm not saying a generation, but there's a whole bunch of Rangers fans who have seen everything that's happened in the last decade, and they saw the Scottish Cup win over Hearts, and then there was another hiatus, another void until this trophy's come along, whereas their dads and their grandfathers might have been seeing Rangers winning a trophy every single season, maybe even 2 at times, maybe even 3 at times. So it's important to get Rangers back in that sort of winning mentality, because it'd been very, very easy for Rangers to lose that game today and then be questioned about not having the bottle and not having the stomach and not having the guts for the big occasion. Fine, you might win a game against Betis in a one-off tie and it's in Europe with the safety net underneath you. If you don't get into the Europa League, you'll fall down into the conference. There was no safety net. Rangers were on a high wire today and were, and performed really, really well when the chips were down. And I think for that reason, Rangers are back in the winners' enclosure.
What's your favourite League Cup memory with involving Rangers? What if you had to look back? What's your favourite one?
Probably 2. Well, actually 3. One would be the first one would be probably 84 when McCoy scored a hat trick. When again the whole Jock Wallace psychology, Jock Wallace wanted McCoy to play a slightly withdrawn role in that game because of various reasons, again injuries and the likes, but wasn't getting the response from McCoy, and said that he'd had a phone call from Cardiff who wanted to take him on loan. Right, nothing could have been further from the truth. And McCoy's basically got a rocket up his arse and went out and scored a hat trick. The game that Rangers won, the 3-3 game, and then they won in penalties against Aberdeen, was an absolute classic.
Yeah.
For the goal. 2 things: David Cooper's free kick, and also the equaliser that Rangers got when they were 3-2 down, when Graham Roberts basically smashed Willie Miller and going for an aerial challenge to make sure he get the ball and knocked it down for Rangers equaliser. And the last one would have to be Gascoigne and McCoy falling out at half time against Hearts.
The 4-2 game.
Yeah,
4-3, actually 4-3 wasn't that game?
Yeah, and coming back out and had knocked a few lumps at each other and then come back out and knocked the stuffing out of Hearts. I think that would be my sort of three memories of the League Cup.
The 3-2 game you talk about there with McCoy scoring the hat-trick, that was my first ever Rangers Celtic game. It was the first time I ever went to Rangers Celtic. I'd be 13, 14. And Rangers were not favourites for that.
No.
Rangers were in and we were not favourites for it. And we were 2-1 up, going into injury time. And Brian McClare equalised. And I was tears. It's literally tears running down my cheeks. It was the most devastating thing. And anyway, it had a happy ending. We won it in extra time. I think McCoy's got 2 penalties that day, and I think one of them was saved, and he stuck in the rebound from there.
He stuck in the rebound, and if you remember as well from that game, I think Roy Aitken was in line for being the Rangers man of the match. He gave away a penalty, and he shoved, I think it was Stanley Clark, he shoved into the ball to get a knockdown from McCoy to run on and score
I'll need to look back. I didn't remember that. But
have a look. Roy Aitken running like that with Sandy Clark's shirt holding on to it, and basically shoved him into the ball and he got a knockdown. Anyway,
there was a few more in the 80s when we played. We had one against Celtic when Ian Durrant just was at his absolute peak. And it was a game where I was mesmerised watching Durrant. I used to love watching Ian Durrant play football.
McClare scored in that game as well.
Yeah, that's right. And they were proper ding-dongs, those League Cup games. And they used to be a bit earlier in the season as well. They used to be kind of November time, end of October, beginning of November time, and a wee bit earlier in the season. But anyway, I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit for yourself, Grant. It's a similar kind of question, though. That game that Stuart and I just talked about, the League Cup final in 1984, it actually proved to be a false dawn. It wasn't like the 1971. It didn't take Rangers on. We won the League Cup again the next season, but ultimately that managerial reign for Jock Wallace didn't work out. 3 seasons later, Souness won it, and it was his first trophy, and it did prove to be a springboard into one of, frankly, the most successful periods in the club's history. We'll all enjoy tonight. We'll enjoy tomorrow. We'll probably still be smiling on Tuesday. But it's important we don't get carried away here. What does this result mean for the club? If I'm putting you on the spot, you have to kind of project yourself forward 12 months or so. How important do you think this result is for Rangers?
Yeah, I think you covered a bit of it there. It's absolutely massive for us, John. I was born in the late 80s, brought up in the 90s, winning everything, absolutely everything, winning trebles, doubles.
Must have had a hard milk round.
Paper round the Gaza strip me. But as Stuart said, team, they've not won anything in the last 10, 11 years, hardly anything. So it's massive for us. And do you know what? It's not just massive to win something today for that. 3 months ago, we were down and out. Everything, the season had gone, supposedly. We looked out at Europe, we were losing to Aris Limassol. Look at us now. We're flying. We're in the last 16. We've won a cup. The dimensions changed. The dynamic has changed. We're now going to be, if we win our 2 games in hand, top of the league. We're going to Celtic Park. We win that. You're top of the league. It's a massive, massive thing. If we lost today, I wouldn't be as confident going forward, going to Celtic Park, going to these games. It's massive. For these players like Tavernier and Golson have been here for years, to win that gives confidence. They've been battered, let's be honest, they've been battered. Their comms has been battered for years because we've not won the trophies that we should be winning. So for me, it's massive. Obviously, I was spoiled when I was younger, so the feeling today was incredible. To have that feeling back, to win the first trophy of the season was incredible, mate, and long may it continue. I mean, I've missed it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've all missed it. Stuart, I'm going to quick you back in time to Thursday night. Now, the guys have done a very good job of looking back at the game on Friday night's pod, and also Alec did his post-match one as well, which I would recommend if you get a chance. If you haven't listened to it, I'd recommend have a listen to it. There's some great stuff in that. But I just want to spend a couple of minutes on it. As I think it was Grant mentioned earlier, it's only our second ever victory in Spain, and our first ever over Spanish opposition. So that's quite a feat. In the 50 years or so of international clubbed football Rangers have been involved in, to have our first ever victory over a Spanish team. And there's a great trivia question, which I should have placed at the start of this, of that's a part of the 10th Spanish team we've played. Who are the other 9? But we're probably a wee bit... Well, if we get time at the very end, we'll play it. Maybe you can think about that. So, we've got a couple of months off now before we've got any more European football in the last 16. That result against Betis, that performance against Betis, particularly when you consider the injuries we had, I texted my cousin before the match and I said, this is Rangers playing with, Dessers up front going into this game. And we won it,
But who knew Dessers could do a good impersonation of Archie Gemmill?
I know, well, he nearly did it again today.
Yeah.
He fluffed his line just at the last moment, but he just stuck the centre half away out. Then you were having to pay to get back in again. But the point I was going to make was that Betis result, arguably better than any of our results in the Europa League over the last few years. I know we've had some great results in the Europa League, some great performances, particularly away to German opposition. So, joking aside, where do you think that result sits now in the history of Rangers in Europe? Because it's the first time we've ever won. Better teams than this Rangers team have lost badly to Spanish teams away from home. Where does that result sit now for you?
And lost badly to much, much lesser teams. If you remember Rangers against Alaves, all those many years ago, and there is no equation that you can put up on a blackboard like Albert Einstein would do and show you how all the different parts of the kind of sums that go into making a result. You could say, Rangers have been up against better opposition and haven't managed it, but Betis are a good team. Fantastic home record up until Thursday night as well. Yep. And you would also say then that Rangers had, as I mentioned, the safety net. If they didn't win that game, they could go into the conference. But they didn't have as many players as they should have had. So once you put all of these things into some sort of formula, that comes out as being a very, very good victory. And I would agree with you. It's as good as any of the wins that Rangers have had in terms of other, European group ties and the likes. And historically, it's a big result. Okay, it won't be like beating Leeds United or PSV Eindhoven or umpteen other kind of results. But it's when you see the detail of where Rangers were, and Grant used the phrase earlier, down to the boards. That was a big result and an outstanding performance. And I go back to the players that played in that game. The guy who scored the winning goal, you wonder where that guy's career might have been if it hadn't been for having as many injuries. And even at Rangers, I mean, his goals per game ratio is pretty damn good, but his games played per calendar year is pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
But I think you saw with the goal he scored the other night there. That's the kind of stage or level this guy could play on week in, week out.
Yeah. No, it's Roof is, a fit Roof is the best striker at the club and arguably the best striker in the league. And this is a thing we've spoken about in podcasts before. If Roof could stay fit, he wouldn't be at Rangers. No, don't mind me saying, he's too good to be playing in Scottish football, and it's only simply because of his injury problems that he is at our club just now. And it's tough because it wasn't just his goal. For me, when he came on for that last half hour, his hold-up play, his understanding of where his teammates were, his ability to hold the ball up, to lay it off, to win a free kick. He has this great skill of getting himself fouled, which is probably why he keeps getting all these injuries. But he has a great skill in getting himself fouled at a time when, you need to slow the game down, you need to have possession, you need to move your way up that pitch. Dessers can't do it. Dessers, for a big, strong man, I'm amazed how many times centre-halves are just able to get the ball from him and the ball just seems to bounce off him in any kind of direction. That doesn't happen with Roof, but... Roof
is a good possession player. And he's also one of these players, he must frustrate the hell out of the Rangers midfield or Rangers defence when suddenly your striker is dribbling back towards you. Do you know what I mean? But he's holding on to possession of the ball to get turned and lay the ball off to somebody else, and he has that level of confidence. Yeah. And that's what makes him he's a bit of an enigma, you have to say, but he's a fantastic asset to have and under those circumstances.
He's got absolutely everything. I've seen this with my mates before. He came on, he was holding the ball up. The only thing he doesn't have is pace, but he's a poacher. He brings people into play. And I said to him, let's wrap him up to Celtic Park. Honestly, just wrap him up and Cotton Wool to Celtic Park. We need him, because today Dessers was not doing it again. The ball came into him time and time again, and he didn't hold it in. Cantwell was trying to play off, and it didn't happen. So we need Roof to be fit for Celtic Park badly. Badly.
Yeah. And fingers crossed. But it was great to see him there. It was great to see him score. It was a fantastic night. And just on that, just so that the other teams are Seville, Real Madrid, Real Zaragoza, which was the one that I didn't get. Athletic Bilbao, Osasuna.
Osasuna, that's who it was. I always said Alves, it was Osasuna.
Osasuna. Valencia. No, Barcelona and Villarreal. That's we've drawn. We drew with Villarreal, and we drew with Valencia. We lost to everyone else over there. So anyway, losing. Who does that these days?
I was there when they lost badly to Valencia when Gates Comendieta gave
Alex Ireland, I think. Wasn't it?
He just gave a masterclass in how to play, sort of right side of the midfield. Unbelievable, the guy.
Yeah, he was a bit specialised. He's one of the best players I've seen live. In a game, you just thought, wow, this guy's on another level. But anyway, listen, talking of games on another level, we're back to reality on Wednesday, Grant.
Vincent Tatties.
when the always entertaining St Johnstone come to town. Now, after a horrific start to the season, St Johnstone have hit a little bit of form since appointing Craig Levein. Wednesday has banana skin written on it. His potential. The players, I'm assuming, are going to enjoy themselves tonight. The photographs or the video I saw of Clement outside Edmiston House with the trophy, which was quite enjoyable. So the guys are having, I do expect they will be professional, but they'll have some. They'll let their hair down a bit, undoubtedly. But they'll be back at it tomorrow, to get themselves ready for Wednesday night. But ultimately, you have two big games like that in a row. There will be an element of after the Lord Mayor's show about it. How do Rangers approach this? How do they keep? How do you get players up for a game like that after you've had a monumental victory in Europe, followed by the winning of a cup final? How do you get the players up for St Johnstone at home? And Levein will come with 15 men behind the ball. He's coming for a draw. And he has no interest in doing anything else. It's maybe not going to be the best advertisement for Scottish football. How do you do this? What does Clement say to them?
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier on. That's why today was massive. It's to keep momentum going. We need to keep momentum going. This is a game in hand, isn't it? So this is a chance to put pressure on Celtic, bring the points gap down. We're at home, thankfully. I think more of the same, John. More of the same. I know the same guys have been going to the well time and time again, but we'll have Cifuentes back as well, maybe a couple of other guys, maybe Ryan Jack to join the squad. But same again, they need to keep churning out results, simple as that. They just need to keep going until we get to the winter break and then get some players back, hopefully, and then get the January transfer window on as well. But more of the same, just keep doing what you're doing. St Johnstone have been a lot better under Craig Levein, a lot more solid. And they will come and they'll just sit 10 men behind the ball as usual. And it's up to us to break them down. Simple as that. They don't have to come out and get a win. We need to go for the win. And that's it. It's simple as that. But the confidence must be sky high now, John. It must be sky high. And I've got every faith in the players to go and put on a show again on Wednesday and keep going.
Yeah, guys like Seema, McCausland, Wright, now that he's back fit again, Matondo, now that he's back fit again, they'll be really important because we need width. You need width against teams like this. You need to stretch their defence. You need to stretch them, find the gaps. Cantwell, again, it's a big game for him. It's the kind of game where you're looking for him to pick up free kicks on the edge of the box, and because it's going to take something special to just get that first goal. I will just have to see how that goes. I am looking forward to it, and surely the results elsewhere at the weekend will have given the players a lift. They must now look at this and realise for the first time in a long time it's in our own hands. Yeah, as I said, if we win our 2 games in hand, we go top of the league. Simple as that.
That's it.
And these things are always easier said than done. And I don't know the pitch today it held up pretty well, but it must have been heavy. There'll be heavy legs tomorrow. But let's wait and see. We'll approach it with a smile. I suspect Ibrox will be jumping on Wednesday night, and quite rightly so. It's been a while. We've waited for this, and I'm delighted it's here, gentlemen. That's us. We're at the 10:30, so bang on. Appreciate you both giving up your time tonight. I'm sure
you promised 4 hours.
I did. But Frankie sent me a number of messages in between times telling me that that's not going to happen. No, I don't think I could, in all good consciousness, subject anybody to 4 hours of me. That would be unfair at this time of year in particular. So listen, I do appreciate you guys giving up your time tonight. I'm sure you would both rather be on your 15th round in the Roseville, belting out the tunes just now, but as it is, you've got to sit and talk nonsense with me for an hour.
On my second bottle of Bazik. One for the younger listeners.
Yes, it was called that because you Bazik after it. Yeah.
That's correct. Very busy.
So listen, if you've watched this live, that's great. If you are looking to catch up with any of our podcasts that have gone before, they are all available, and you can watch them and download them on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher and Spotify. As I said at the start of the show, this is our last Sunday night show of the year. Next Sunday is Christmas Eve, and none of us can be bothered doing a show on Christmas Eve, so there's not going to be one. Some of the guys are taking some time off over Christmas, well-earned time off over Christmas, so there's not going to be another Sunday night show for a couple of weeks at least, so it'll be 2024. Before the Bears Sunday night show. There will probably be some reaction pods over the next couple of weeks, and they're always good. They give a different, slightly different format, but they're always entertaining, and particularly if we keep winning. So I'd just like to thank Stuart and Grant for giving up their time tonight. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening and tomorrow and Tuesday, and of course have a great Christmas when it comes. Thanks very much.